Spacemen, get off your hobby horse and then get back on. Because today we're talking about hobbies on the Manspace. Welcome to the Manspace podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter. Welcome, Spacemen. I'm getting a bunch of dings in my ear because I'm getting a bunch of texts.
Wah, wah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
What?
Mike, talk. I got to send a text.
Part of me wants to not, so I can draw attention to the fact that you're not participating in this podcast right now.
And Matt's not here either. Again,
and let's be honest, how wise a decision is it to put the weight of this podcast on my shoulders? Feels like a real bad idea.
You pulled it off once.
If that's what you want to call that. Jane started school today, by the way.
Nerd.
Right.
First day?
She was super. Yeah.
Oh, my kids are already on week
2.
Yeah, just 2.
You guys started last week.
Stop track. Hey, did you know that
dude, I have clients that still live in Texas. That's why I know.
Did you know that if you graduated from a Texas high school, I don't know how this works exactly, but I know that people in the ACC, Austin Community College District, now get free tuition.
Yeah.
Period. You only pay fees. This is someone. Becky was talking about someone there said their daughter signed up for $67 for the full semester.
Yeah.
Somebody moved, although somebody's city voted themselves out of the district. Dummy.
I was going to say it wouldn't have mattered.
We weren't voted.
Pflugerville.
Voted.
Although,
like, take us right out.
I didn't. My friend Scooter's kid.
Scooter.
Like, apparently they have some deal with Weiss.
Oh, yeah?
High school, which is, I don't know, maybe they made a deal with the district or something, but she can pretty much, she pretty much gets that deal. So maybe Pflugerville has opted back into district.
Maybe.
In the
there was
sense,
something,
I don't know, but
what I've also read was that if you graduate from a Texas high school, you can have free tuition.
Yeah, but that doesn't.
I don't know. I'm just telling you. That's what I was actually told. I just assumed there must be a rule about being in district, though.
Right. They've got to get, like, that's some crazy funding from somewhere then.
Crazy liberals. Crazy drunk driver.
Crazy drunk driver.
I was just going to tell you something.
Pine Mall. That's, I think, my favorite detail from that, by the way.
I know.
That at the start, it's Twin Pines Mall, and at the end, it's Lone Pine Mall.
My favorite, my pines. My favorite is when Doc Brown is staring off when they're at Twin Pines Mall and says, "Old man Peabody had this crazy idea about breeding pine trees," and he has this like pause on his face, and he just goes off and goes back to what he's doing. Crazy idea about breeding pine trees. My pines.
I've been watching Scrubs a lot lately. And the couple episodes where Michael J. Fox is on there.
Yeah.
When's the last time you saw those?
Years ago.
Yeah. I forget. He's like, Michael J. Fox is like legitimately a really good actor. What?
That's stuff I shouldn't say. It's kind of funny because you're like, you forget. It's like, yeah, because all the shakes. Right? I'm like, well, we always knew he was a good actor, right?
Dude, we did, but like, I haven't seen him in anything in so long.
Yeah.
And even then, right, like when he, like towards the end of his career, for sure, his career was built on sitcoms. And so I think sometimes you forget when you're just watching someone do sitcoms, like, oh, right. But there is a real, and that's I think one of my favorite things about Scrubs anyway, is the way they balance kind of the slapstick and just dumb humor with the dramatic.
Yeah.
But it was cool watching him because like you could see there were things they were clearly doing to kind of accommodate his Parkinson's.
Uh-huh.
Like there's a scene where out of nowhere, a, a, a hospital bed's rolling by, and so he jumps up on the hospital bed, and he and JD have a conversation rolling on the hospital bed. And I thought, yeah, that was probably just to accommodate.
Hmm.
It was fascinating to watch just different things that they would do and just work it in where you wouldn't know, except he's got Parkinson's. But anyway,
Interesting. I haven't.
yeah.
I've been mostly watching my filler show because I like to watch shows when I'm like writing case notes.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching tons of Bob's Burgers,
Oh yeah.
and I do have to say there are certain shows that kind of make you feel a little bit of hope for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Lasso, obviously,
Oh my gosh.
but Bob's Burgers, both Bob, even though Bob's kind of a grumpy pessimist,
Mm-hmm.
um, they both seem to be so like plucky about their circumstances. And I know it's a
Yeah.
cartoon, but whatever. Like there's some episode, it's like season 10, their Christmas episode, and Linda comes in singing about how she has a seasonal part-time job for the post office because we're just a little bit poor. And she's singing it in the most like, because we're just a little bit poor. It's like they have like the saddest things. It's like, oh, they just seem so plucky about it. Like, it's okay, it'll work out.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been watching that. But wait, let's go back to your kid. She started school, and this is her first day. I mean, first
Today's her
week.
first day. So this
Today's
school
first day.
is, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. This school is built like it, my comment to
It's built like a
Allison,
brick.
as because we all went and kind of like she went and picked up her schedule and kind of walked around it, and then she wanted to go back on the second schedule day last week to walk
Uh huh.
around it again just to make sure she kind of knew where she was going and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we all went, right? Like Jenner thought it would help my anxiety. It did not help my anxiety; it just made it worse. Um, but I didn't say that to anybody but Jenner. Um, but so we're there, and it's to me it felt kind of like the man wearing center at BYUI,
Yes.
right, where it's just kind of like you go into a section and there's a big giant kind of common gathering area, and then you've got offices and classrooms off on the sides. That's what it felt like to me. And
Wow.
that's like every like it's built into sections. Like you go into a section and it's all of the math classes are in this section,
Hmm.
and there's a
Cool.
big common area for the math, and there's a big right. And I was just like, huh. So it's massive. Like the first time we drove around it, we were like, holy crap. And the first time we took Jane, because we came up here the February 23. So before we had really told, like you guys knew we were moving, but none of our friends knew we were moving at that point.
Right.
Um, and as we drove around the campus, Jane like started to kind of feel the weight of it
Uh
that
huh.
first trip, and she was like towards the end kind of crying, not
Uh huh.
like full blown, but a little bit, just
Yeah.
because it is massive. And they're a 6A school,
Yeah.
so I mean it's Texas size, right?
Yeah. That's
There's
offensive to Missourians.
saying what?
Texas sized. They'd say it's Missouri sized.
It's not Missouri size. I still laugh that like 5 hours puts me outside the state, no matter which direction I'm traveling.
5 hours for me just puts me deeper into Texas somehow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if you go the right direction, it will put you on the border of Texas and Oklahoma. But that's it. 5 hours any other direction, you're just deeper into Texas. Anyway,
I could make it over to Louisiana. Anyway, go ahead.
could you in 5 hours?
I think so. I don't remember.
Like
I don't remember.
maybe
I didn't
right
pay
to the
attention
border,
last time I
right?
did it, but
So it's like
but
two and a
I think
half
it
to
would.
Houston, though.
Yeah, but Houston's not that far.
Okay. Anyway, um, so it's pretty massive, but she lucked out and has like two girls that she knows from church. In fact, once her, the counselor, as we were setting up her schedules, like, well, does she know any girls here that are coming here? And you know, Jane was actually home sick, so she was like on the phone with Jenner. And the counselor in Jenner's like, well, she knows this girl Leah and she knows this girl Chloe, and kind of listed some of the other girls that she knows. And the guy goes, "Oh, are you guys Mormon?" And Jenner's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay." And so then he's like, all right, well, she needs to be in this class. And he goes, let's see if she knows, and he was finding classes that had some of these girls in them.
Nice.
So that she would at least know somebody. So she has 8 classes, and 4 of them, before she even got there, she knew she had people in.
Yeah, that's good. She'll
The
be
5th
fine.
one, she doesn't actually have to go to, because it's flex, and her flex is first period. And if you're a sophomore, junior, or senior, and your flex is first period, you don't have to go.
What?
You can just stay home.
Okay.
So she's like, she's going to go this whole week, but she's like, I don't know after that how much I'll go.
She's a sophomore, right?
Yeah. And the like one of the classes, like, she's got a friend in her 4th and 5th period classes, and 5th period is when her lunch is, so she's got a friend at lunch, because that's been right, like, Jenner, she's watched my anxiety over the last couple of weeks as we've gotten closer to this, and my anxiety was really bad last night. She's like, oh, she'll be fine. I said, yeah, but I know what this is. Like, Jenner never did it, right? Jenner never, like, she moved to Seattle when she was 6, and she lived in the same house until she got married. So she doesn't, right? Like, that's not something she's experienced. Not only have I experienced the thing that I've made our kid, right, do, like, you and her, it was your sophomore year, it's her sophomore year. I was like,
and that turned out amazing.
You did, but I still remember what your first day was.
Yeah, freaking sucked.
Right. And so I'm just like, that's been my anxiety, right? So finding out that she had a girl that she knew, and the girl and her, it's not that just that she knows her, they're actually friends. But I was like, oh, good, so at least she'll have someone to eat lunch with.
Well,
and Jenner's comment, she's like, yeah, but I mean, like, things are so different now. Rob had to sit around and read his math book. And she goes, Jane's got a phone. And I said, yeah, the issue with Rob wasn't that he had to read his math book. It wasn't about the fact that
I had to look like I was cool sitting by myself.
Yeah, it's not that he had to eat by himself. Both of us are capable of eating by ourselves. Like, we can go out to restaurants alone. We can go to movies alone. That's not the issue. The issue is knowing you're that way because you have no choice. I'm not choosing to eat by myself. It's not that all my friends are in another lunch. It's, I don't have any friends, so thanks for that. Anyway.
Yeah. It was a rough first day.
Yeah. And that's, I told someone, like, you and I obviously had different lunches.
I wasn't allowed to go off campus anyway.
What now?
I wasn't allowed to go off campus anyway.
I know, but if we'd had the same lunch, there's no way I would have left you in there by yourself.
Yeah.
See you, suck,
I'm going to McDonald's.
That's the funny thing. I didn't even leave. I just went and sat in the car.
So yours was also awesome.
Yes, but I could go sit in my car and turn on music and not care.
I think it's funny listening to this. I was actually sitting here thinking, for Spacemen, wondering, because we're getting the full lowdown of Jane's first day.
Yeah, I'm sure she doesn't listen, so it's fine.
We're only into noon of Jane's first day, and I thought, really, what we're getting down is the lowdown of Mike's
anxiety.
Mike's
about
anxiety.
Jane's first day. Yeah.
Really,
it's actually, my anxiety's actually been really good today.
Does she have A and B days? You said
no.
It's the same thing every day.
Yep.
Oh,
which
Weird.
I don't know. I've never heard a good explanation for the AB day. I think they're a terrible idea.
I'll give you a good
Um,
reason.
go for it.
I'll give you two. One is
Okay.
because of A and B days, they always have time in class to work on their assignments, so they have less homework. Number two,
Theoretically.
not theoretically, I'm telling you, this is what happens with my kids. Number two, uh, also actually, that means they can work on it in class while their teacher's there, and they can get answers right then. That part is theoretical because who's answering the questions. But number two, and this is totally selfish, if you go on a trip during the school year, your kids miss less of each class. Instead,
No,
if
they
I
don't.
wanted a, yes, they do. If I went on a
No, they
4-day
don't.
trip, yes, they do. If I went on a 4-day trip, they'd miss 4 of those of the same class.
Right. They're still going to miss
You're
two of those
assuming
classes
no,
at an
you're
hour and a
assuming
half
no,
each.
you're assuming that the teacher is lecturing for an hour and a half. She is not, or
I,
he is not.
I,
They lecture
I
for the
know
same
they're not.
amount.
I know. Except, no, they don't. They have the same amount to
Dude,
cover, but half the days to do it.
I'm telling you, they don't. My kids have tons of free time sitting in these classes.
I'm not saying they don't have free time. I'm saying the teachers are covering the same amount of material as the teachers who meet every day,
Look, Mike, you
but they
can't come
have
at me.
half the
You
number of
can't
days
come
to
at
do
me.
it.
You can't come at me with logic on this because in the end, I'm
I
just happy my kids only get an absence once in math. Okay.
well, and that's different. They're only getting one
Ah,
absence,
ah,
but they're
ah, ah,
missing
ah.
they're missing the
Case
same
in
amount of
point, ipso
content.
facto, I'm your boss.
I was gonna say, you're arguing like part of my argument was even from a teacher standpoint. Like I don't think I've ever really heard students who like it. Uh, most of them are irritated by the time they have, and I think the ones who choose to do work during that time find time to do the work at school anyway, and the ones who don't. So that to me, at least in the with the kids I work with, that's where I've seen them. I see the two types. Like there are the kids that like I'm like, so what if you didn't have the extra time? They're like, I'd still do it at school. They're like, I don't like working at home. They're like, so I would do it in my lunch or I would do it in my flex time.
So watch this transition.
Okay.
Spaceman, what you just witnessed. There's always a point when Mike and I do this, especially when we're alone. Sometimes when Matt's here.
Matt keeps us in check better.
But there's always a point where I can feel it tip into our tone is escalating up, and we're going to start fighting for some point that really neither one of us knows very well, but we will say we
That's
do.
true.
And even declare factually certain things because this is sort of a hobby, an unfortunate one if you ask me, that I've tried to move away from. It's sort of a
Of
hobby
the
apparently
Porters.
for the Porter boys. Maybe less so Rick, but at least me, you, and Paul do it.
Which is funny. I don't do it outside of you and
Well, I don't know. Listen,
Paul.
let me go ahead and get back into our hobby again
Sure.
because I don't think I do it either. But that's because
Yeah.
what happens with other people is I just state my assertion like I'm right, and they're like, okay, whatever. But me and you and Paul are like, idiot. So it's not that you don't do it; it's that nobody fights back with you. See,
Maybe,
I'm doing it. I'm doing it
although
right now.
I know you are. I am much less likely to speak definitively around people that aren't you.
You got to put me in my place. Is that you're saying it's
No,
me?
it's a comfort level thing. I'm comfortable here with you, and I know that I can say things. Plus, in this particular instance, we're talking about teaching where I spent 15 years. So
But
it's
did
one of
you
those things
spend
where I think,
15 years teaching high school in two-hour chunks?
oh,
Uh,
I didn't spend any time doing that.
So, on to hobbies. Because I can feel that we're both in a mood, and it's just going to go where I know I don't want it to go.
Why not, Rob? Maybe our listeners really enjoy this. Maybe they
It's
enjoy
funny.
this little dive into Mike and Rob's head.
I wonder sometimes. Sometimes I talk to friends who are like, in fact, our the drummer from our band. We'll talk about this when we talk about hobbies. Our sweet band Button Hooked celebrating its 20th anniversary of breakup this year in
Which makes it what,
2024.
like the 21st or second anniversary since inception? It was
No,
only a
when did we
couple of
start?
years, right?
I think we started. Yeah, we did it from like 2022 to 2024,
Yeah.
and in that time reached legendary provo status. But then even won $200 from Guitar Czar. We were on Fox 13. Anyway,
You were on
so
Fox 13?
yeah, the morning show.
I think I remember that.
Remember we played at some terrible battle of the bands that we were
Yeah.
invited to play at. It was all metal bands.
Yeah.
And we were all standing there going, why were we invited to play at this? We're a punk ska band. This is not going to go over well. We're going to get beat up. But we were playing there and some other band came and said, hey, we really liked your set. Do you want to come open for us at Hard Rock Cafe? So we're like, sure. So we opened at Hard Rock Cafe. And then while we were at Hard Rock Cafe, Fox 13 was there having a party. And they really liked us and offered, they said, will you come on our morning show and play? And the other band was not invited. And they were very mad that they asked us to open for them.
Which is
Anyway,
funny. The implication there being, if you guys hadn't been here, we would have been invited.
I know it's funny, but the point of this was to say the drummer Ryan Schooley, he'll be so excited, or Nubs as we used to call him. He talks about, he kept saying, Rob, I know you intimately. I listen to you all the time. It's like we hang out all the time. It's like, oh, it's just so one way. He knows all my intimate details, all the dumb things I do.
At least the ones you're willing to put out on the podcast.
We should have what am I not willing to put out? We should have people text us their dumb things so we can put their shame on the podcast.
That's true.
So, hobbies. Do you have them? If not, get some. Catch us next time on the Manspace. Oh.
No, so here's the thing. Like, I've been thinking about hobbies a lot lately. One, because I don't have any. I mean, I have things that I enjoy
awesome.
doing. I have things that I enjoy doing. But in my head, there are certain things that qualify it as a hobby versus something I do, right? Like, for example, I could call reading a hobby, except lately the only reading I've been doing has been required reading, right? Like,
what are
we're
you
doing
required to read?
Well, for this, right? We read The Storyteller, and now we're reading Comfort Crisis. And so I'm reading those, but not because I was like, ooh, that book seems really interesting to me. Although both The Storyteller and The Comfort Crisis are books that we had talked about. And I thought, oh yeah, I need to, like, they were both on my list of books to read, but now they're required reading. So this isn't like I'm doing it because I have to do it. Right.
That's true.
And so to me, there are things that I think, sure, that's going to shift it out of the hobby area because what I get from it's going to be different. And so, like I said, I have hobbyish things, but they're not. Yeah. I guess so. Here's my first question for you. Like, what are the benefits? And I have done some research. My research being ChatGPT today. Of just why are hobbies important? That's my question. Like, why is a hobby beneficial? What is it a hobby can do for us? I guess I'm curious first too. Like, do you ever encourage clients to go find hobbies?
That's a funny question because there's certain things like that that in therapy, even if it's a good idea, if you say it, it's not going to go over well. Sometimes it feels like, seriously, I'm paying you this much. You told me to go get a hobby. Uh,
So how do you phrase it when you think this guy needs a hobby? Because
I
surely
will
you've sat
usually,
across from someone and thought this guy needs a hobby.
most of the time, I don't. I think one of the benefits of a hobby is that it connects us to other people socially in some way. Usually, it doesn't
Ooh, that
always.
that was one.
Yes, it's like I wrote Chat GPT, and
Mm-hmm.
technically, I may have. For all I know, I wrote something and it grabbed it off of there.
That's true. You could have.
Uh, but so that's one of the things I think it does, and so and obviously that's not always true. Although, like, because I ride my bike, it's a hobby I have. It's also a modus transportationis. That's, you guys might not know that last word. It's Dutch.
That's what we
So
call fancy.
so but I ride it. But I prefer. I don't know. I say I prefer to ride alone. I've never actually ridden with somebody else. Although I do want to go ride with my buddy Beef uh, up in Minnesota, where it looks like that land was built for bikes, but not Texas. Texas was built for big trucks that want to run you over. Get off my
Yeah.
road. Anyway, so that's not a hobby that necessarily connects me to other people, though it could if I allowed it to. Um, it does connect me by, like, the other day I was helping some guy move, and he had like 7 bikes, including a 1999 Trek Lance
Oh
Armstrong edition,
yeah.
essentially. That was it was the same frame, not the frame that Lance Armstrong rode, but the same frame.
Right.
It had a U.S.
But the
Postal
same.
Service decal on it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we talked about bikes for a little bit. Like, it's connecting to me to talk about bikes. It also feels like it kind of activates my brain. These are things I'm interested in that get me excited.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of pull me out of my own head, which now I think is extremely important. That we get so stuck in our heads all the time, that a hobby is something that can pull you out and kind of get you in the zone or the flow of something that feels like, man, I just enjoy doing this. It feels really fun.
Okay, I'll give you another one there.
Oh, okay, fine.
You got what'd you get? Uh you got intellectual engagement.
Okay,
You got that one.
man. It turns out, Spaceman, you don't need Chat GPT. Just shoot me a
You
text.
just
I'll
need
give you the
Rob.
answer, and
Yeah,
it covers the same thing.
he's got you covered, people.
I'm going to start a Kickstarter campaign that you guys fund me. Go fund me. I'm gonna get some investors. I don't know. It'll be called Ask Rob. So, what else does it have?
So chat GTP,
Jeep,
and
Jeep,
that's some of
Jeep it,
yours came up
Jeep.
with, like, I could have hit a few places.
Uh huh.
Stress relief and mental health, which is actually a big part of, like, when I'm talking about this with clients, this is where it most often comes up, right? We'll talk about
Uh huh.
the things that they're struggling with. And the question, the way I phrase it to them is, what is it you do for you?
Right.
Right. What kind of things do you do that you're not doing them because you have to, you're not doing them because, right, like, you're just doing them because you enjoy doing it.
Uh huh.
And I'll often encourage my clients to go hobby shopping. Um, so stress relief and mental
You do
health.
that at Hobby Lobby.
They could, for
Okay.
the right thing. Personal growth and skill development.
That sounds
Creativity
dumb.
and self-expression.
Okay, I'll get that one.
Work-life
That was
balance.
those were 2 other things that I was actually, if I could say, I was going to say that too. I did. I do think the balance part is pretty big. So I'll talk about that with people when you ask, how do I bring up hobbies?
Mm-hmm.
I will say, you're kind of out of whack. You need to have something that feels like you. And
Yeah.
I don't usually say, go find a hobby. I'll say, what are the things that make you feel kind of like you, that feel like, this is me creating, this is me moving forward. I find joy in this. I find fulfillment, because I do think, I think most of us spend, I was thinking about this the other day, walking into this office and thinking, I've been in this office for 11 years. Uh, and just thinking, how much of my waking life do I spend inside of these 4 walls?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually enjoy my job, but not always.
Sure.
And wondering, I do have I have a TV in here. That's a hobby I have. I like watching TV. But like I used to have a guitar in here so I could get it, pick it up and play it, but I wasn't playing it very often. But I like playing.
Wouldn't you end up giving it to your kid?
Yeah, yeah.
Does she have a
Turns out
job
that
yet?
guitar was worth way more than I thought it was.
The
I bought
acoustic or
it.
the?
No, the acoustic is also worth more than it was than we bought it for. Way more than we bought it for. But the electric I had, I just assumed it's an Epiphone, which is kind of the lower end Gibson,
Mm-hmm.
and I just assumed I bought it from a guy when I was in college for $20 for that and a little practice amp. And turns out that my particular, you can look up your serial number and stuff on your guitar, and I looked it up, and mine's worth like $850. It's like, oh, good for me.
Way to go, buddy.
And then I gave it to my daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and now she's melting faces. So anyway, uh, I don't know. Oh yeah, sorry. Though I think that's the kind of the way I get into it because I do think it does. This is actually something I think a lot about. Like, how do we? Oh man, I'm going to wax totally like existential and philosophical for a second. I keep thinking more and more like about what will I be happy with when I'm dying? Like
Mm-hmm.
when I feel like, okay, this is done. Am I proud of what I've done? And if
Yeah.
I had to stop now, would I say I'm proud of what I've done? Or what would I say what's
Mm-hmm.
missing? Or would I say I really enjoyed that? That was fun. Like it's kind of like getting off the ride at the end and be like, oh, it was fun. I'd do it again. And thinking how a lot of us would be like, no, no, I'm glad this one's over. Uh, but just kind of wondering like how I watch these older people. Um, I say older because I think I used to say old, but now I feel like anyway, it doesn't matter. I watch these older people. You see them out walking, or sometimes you'll see them driving home at like 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and I think, did you like go out to a coffee shop and sit there and you just enjoy yourself for a little while, and then thinking, what do I want my life to be like? What's this going to feel? What's going to make me feel good? But so much of what we do, because we are and not to say we're all greedy people, but our society is pretty greed driven without even knowing it. It's always about how can we get more and what can we get more of. And also, I have to do this or I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about that in a previous episode, but even the idea of like, I I just have read an article recently about how shrinkflation, instead of raising prices, they just shrink the amount that they give you.
Yeah.
That apparently the toilet paper industry has been doing that for decades. That in the 70s, a normal roll of toilet paper was 650 sheets. And now a jumbo, like a super jumbo roll of toilet paper is 170. And they just keep
Yeah.
shrinking it down, but giving it bigger. I know you're about to say, but they have thicker ply and all that stuff, which is true.
Right.
They do 2 ply versus single ply, but
Single
they've
ply.
talked about this thing talked about wood pulp, and it said they found the same amount in both sheets that what they were looking
Really?
at. So it's kind of
Huh.
like, yeah, I think they're just kind of finding ways, but we all buy into the marketing anyway. It doesn't matter. So
Well, no, that's just it. Like, you apparently think a lot about toilet paper. For me, it's M and M's. Um, so like M and M's, it used to be this size, which is now
uh
I think like a 9 ounce. They used to be a pound.
yeah,
I pay the same amount for the like. I think it's almost like 10 ounces. So I'm getting, about 3/4 of what I used to get, but I'm paying
right,
actually probably more than I used to pay for it.
right.
And I'm like, son of a gun.
Which is just and there's actually in this article I was reading, they have this kind of expert, the shrinkflation expert. He's got all these. It's a picture of him with all these things that have been. He has what it was 25 years ago and what it is now,
Mm-hmm.
and how they have all shrunk. But that's not the point. That's that guy's hobby. The point is to say I understand we're not. It's not just greed driven, but we are driven by even sometimes the need to like I have to work more to stay afloat because of the way things are
Yeah.
going. And so it does make it hard to say, like when you ask, what have you done for yourself? People will often say stuff like, I don't have time for that. Now I make an
Yeah.
argument that
Which,
if if you don't, it'll all collapse anyway. But it is kind of
Right.
sad too, because I think you're not. What a sad life you're living. Just find a hobby that's like, I really enjoy doing this.
Well, and that's right. Like to me, when I hear that I don't have time for it, I think
You're like,
no, we do.
hmm,
Um, we just
no,
don't pay attention to how much and where our time goes. Right. Like my students used to come to me all the time and say, "Oh my gosh, Mr. Porter, I didn't have time to do my homework." I'm like, "You didn't like it was 10 minutes. I asked you to do something for 10 minutes. You didn't have 10 minutes yesterday." No, Mr. Porter, like I had to go, like I had this practice and I had dinner and I had this, and I said, okay, so we get out of school at 3. So you're telling me that at 3 o'clock you immediately went to football practice and you were at football practice, and I'm like, so what, you ate dinner at what time? And he's like 8 o'clock. I'm like, okay, so you were at football practice until 8 o'clock, when you came home and immediately sat down and ate, and then you, at what time did you go to bed? Like 9:30. Okay, so then you ate until 9:30 and then you went to bed. That's how your afternoon went
dude.
yesterday? And he's like, well, no.
I've heard people do
And I'm
that, and
like,
the answer would be yes. It's
well,
like, whatever, dude. You
well,
didn't
and
eat
that's
for an
funny.
hour and a
Like
half.
when people tell me that, I'm like, you're lying. Um, but with the kids, right? It was my way of saying like, no, I get that that's what it felt like.
Yeah,
But how often do we spend 10, 15 minutes scrolling on our phone? How
which does
often do we
not count as a
spend?
hobby, by the way.
Nope. Which we're
TV,
gonna.
yes.
That's
TikTok, no.
that's the other question I want to get into is what makes a good hobby.
Mm.
Because it's one of those where, like, I had one guy and I said, look, man, like if you have something that that lifts you, that makes you feel edified, then like, and it's something that you can do, like if it's book reading, then listen to an audiobook while you're driving to these places, or like sometimes for me, I just really need a comedian. Like I just need to laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have time to sit and watch a Jim Gaffigan stand-up special, but I can turn Jim Gaffigan on when I'm picking my kid up. And sure, it's 20 minutes, but I'm laughing for 20 dang minutes. So, okay,
Uh-huh.
we're good. And so I think, no, oftentimes it is just saying, again, it's kind of like what you were saying about therapy before, right? These people who want you to adjust your schedule to
Yeah.
accommodate theirs. And it's like, no, if it's important to you, find the time for it.
Right.
And I think one of the mistakes we make is we think this has got like, well, I got to spend an hour doing it. No, you don't. Like you should. And that's the thing. Like for you, I think, yeah, bike riding, no, like that's going to be 20 to 30 minutes minimum.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so I think, sure.
But I could do 20 minutes. That'd be fine.
Well, and to that, I would say, okay, have more than a single hobby.
Yeah.
Like you should anyway. So have a hobby that's a quicker hobby. Have a hobby that's an easy pickup. I can do this for 15 minutes and then I can put it back down.
Hobby. It's kind of funny, like, just thinking about this, thinking one of the things, when people ask, like, get to know you things, it's like, what's your hobbies? Sometimes I'll say things that's like, is that really a hobby? And then sometimes I'll say things that I think, um, do I even actually do that anymore? So, like, one of them, running and riding my bike. Running, I'm like, is that really a hobby? I do it every day almost and have
Mm-hmm.
for 20 years. Is it a hobby? Like sometimes I really enjoy it, and sometimes I really hate every step of it. I do
Sometimes it's a
always
hobby
like,
and sometimes it's not.
well, I do always like getting outside. I always like
Yeah.
that. Riding my bike, um, I mean, I'm going home early today, so I'll beat the heat, though the sun will be more direct. Uh,
Plus, isn't it like 102?
well, yesterday I rode home and it was 106. The real feel was
Yeah.
109.
Can you really say you're beating the heat?
And well, that was at 5, so I'm beating that heat.
Yeah, by the
Because if
way,
I
it
go
was
home at
like
1, it's
70
no
something
one
here
no one asks
yesterday.
because Missouri's dumb.
So freaking
Um,
amazing.
so other hobbies I'll say is I like to play music, but then I think, well, do I do that anymore? Now I do with my kids,
Right.
and I still love it. And as a teaser for what will come in, we'll say 6 months. Button Hooked is getting back together.
Yeah. You should write a special song to commemorate.
Ryan's already got a few songs he keeps sending me because he's found out what you can do with AI drums now, and they sound amazing.
Do they?
So I was like, dude, well, we're gonna. It's just like Dave Grohl says, we'll write a song that we're gonna put on the greatest hits album that's neither great nor a hit, and we'll learn to play it. And I said I'm gonna document this whole thing for the podcast because it's us pursuing our hobbies and our interests and connecting as men as we melt some faces with some really all the rest of them. I think you guys are probably all still really good at your instrument. Rob was never good to begin with, and he's only gone downhill. But I can
Well,
still sing my guts out and put on a good show. So, but that's a hobby that I'm like, do I even do that anymore? Like I said, I do. But then I was thinking, what other hobbies do I have? I want to develop more. I think our hobbies shift over time. Like I'm watching Stuart. I think I told you guys last time that he just built like
a, a
a
bookcase.
perfect bookcase. Like I'm staring at it
Yeah.
thinking, I would think it would be a little off somewhere. But it's like he just freaking nailed it, and he just made it. I don't.
Do you have
And
power
I think
tools?
he went and bought. He got a long time ago. He asked for his birthday from my in-laws. He asked for just a gift card to Home Depot. So he actually went and he went and bought a bunch of things, including a little mini hammer. It was
Did he buy
freaking
a chop
cute.
saw?
No, I don't remember what he bought. I don't think he actually bought
I
any
want a chop
power
saw.
tools. He used a bunch of tools that I already had
Mm-hmm.
that I never use. But anyway, so it is kind of funny. Like I think hobbies change over time, but I think once you get older and you kind of get in the routine of work, family, um, church stuff, if that's your thing, or volunteer. I know I have some clients that volunteer or are in like the like city council type things. That's like it occupies so much time that it's like, what's your hobby? Service, is it, or is that just what you do all the time?
Yeah.
So I get that it's hard to identify a hobby. It's hard to pick one up because you don't want to be the guy who's 45 who's just learning how to use a saw.
And yet, I mean, I already
And
know how to use a
yet,
saw,
yeah,
but that's like to me, I look at it and I think, yeah, I'm 45. Well, okay, I'm almost 47.
yeah,
Yeah, I want to learn how to play piano. So between now and Christmas, I'm either going to find someone in the neighborhood who's comfortable giving piano lessons to a 47-year-old,
uh huh.
or I'm freaking going to go to Guitar Center because I know they do lessons and be like, I need piano lessons.
Well, like, or in our situation with my kids, Becky and I really want to learn to play tennis, but we're spending so much money on our kids' hobby development
Yeah.
that like yes, we spend money on Spencer to do tennis, and Stuart did tennis for a while, and now he's doing drums, and Whitney's. We stopped doing guitar because she always reaches a point where she's like, "What more can you teach me?" I'm like, "So much more. It's unbelievable." But she's really good.
Right.
But now she's picking up horseback riding, which I think is freaking
Really?
cool. Yeah, it's
I know
freaking
some
awesome.
people.
But I some well, there's a place right down from my house. But
No, I know. In fact, so there's one, and then there's another one near your house somewhere too. I don't know where that one is. But I know some people who, um, their daughter rides
yeah,
and have bought and sold horses, and
yeah.
just so you know, dude.
Oh no, we've already made it very clear to her. We'll never own a horse.
Okay, because I was
When you're an adult, if you
like
want to own a
this,
horse, go for it.
yeah, this kid like competes and whatever, but like that is some crazy.
No, until my professional podcasting career takes off, she's not getting a horse. So,
Yeah,
spacemen, I want you to know that if you guys aren't pushing more to somehow get us advertisers, because apparently we don't have the time to do it and we're not trying,
Yeah.
my kid's never going to get a pony. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. Rob's kid needs a
You
pony.
you ruined her hobbies and dreams. So anyway, I think I've lost my track now.
You're welcome.
Are, we're talking about what's a good hobby now.
Yeah. Like, what makes a good hobby?
I would say if it's something that will impress your friends, probably that one.
So just pick the thing that'll make all your friends think you're cool and you're good.
Something that looks cool. Like, I admit, riding my bike, um, especially with the helmet I wear, that I have the rear view mirror right here because I
Yeah.
honestly feel like, I don't know. I guess people would say it interferes with my aerodynamics, or I look stupid having a mirror there. I'm like, why would you ride without a mirror? I know who's coming up behind me. So I
Yeah.
know I can see, oh, this guy's coming at me. I better move over. I'm not a cyclist who's like, no, I'm in the road. You move. It's like,
Right.
well, they're bigger than me. They'll decide if I move or not.
Yeah.
But I don't look cool doing it. So don't pick cycling.
Well, so I will say this about the looking cool thing. Like, no, I don't think you need to pick a hobby that makes you look cool to your
Wait,
friends.
what?
I know.
All of my hobbies have been
Shocking.
based around that.
I know. Sorry, buddy.
I
I
haven't
don't
looked
think it's
cool once in.
necessary.
Yeah.
No, I think if you're not like if you're gonna choose something and you're gonna be embarrassed to do it or talk about it, like I don't know. There's to me, I think yeah, maybe that's not the best hobby for you.
Right.
Now you can have a hobby that's just for you that no one knows about. That's fine. But I think particularly you don't like the point of the hobby is not to add stress to your life.
Well,
And
here's
so to me, if you're like stressed having to hide, like I can't have my friends finding out that I do this thing, yeah, you might want to find a different hobby then.
I will say, or in that context, I think, or stop thinking that. like,
Well, right.
like
But that's a
enjoy the things you
confidence
enjoy,
issue.
because that
Right. But
feels
that's a
like
confidence issue.
if I loved Dungeons and Dragons and I'm like, I don't want my friends to find out, I'd be like, well, don't give up something you love because you think your friends are going to think you're a dork.
Oh, no. And I'm not saying I'm talking about like developing a new hobby.
Well, and really, what Mike
Like
is
if you
saying
already have
is
an established hobby,
right.
um, but again, like there's also a lot to be said. Um, again, like it's a confidence thing. I was listening to Fake Doctors, Real Friends, that podcast with Zach Braff and Donald Faison.
Yeah.
And I got kind of irritated at Donald Faison, who I'm like, yeah, dude, shut up. Like, you have so much money, it doesn't matter. That's not true for a lot of people. You know, he's like, I mean, who cares? Who cares what they think? And I thought, no, that's not like a lot of us can't afford to not like. And again, it's a confidence thing, but I think, right, but you don't have anything to lose. Like he's sitting here talking about going to parties at Kate Hudson's house. And I think, shut up.
I
Like
mean,
right there, you have instant credibility with people. And so anything you do, you have this freedom to not worry about what are people going to think
according
because
to
you go to parties at Kate Hudson's house.
according to the internet, he only has a net worth of 12 million. That's not very much.
Right. I mean, but I
Guy's
think,
practically hand to mouth as a celebrity.
I mean, can I have another, what is it? More porridge, sir?
It's just, please, sir, can I have some more, isn't it? Anyway, so
Oh, that's
here's
it.
here's a couple things that I think what makes a good hobby.
Okay.
I'll say two things and probably more will come to my mind because that's what I do. Number one is I think a hobby should be something that feels like I'm going to say three things. One, I think a hobby should be something that does kind of develop you. It pushes you a little bit to
Mm-hmm.
whether it's physical or mental, emotional, spiritual, that feels like, man, this expands me.
Yeah.
Um, I think a hobby should be something that feels fulfilling. Like it should be something that that feels like I'm a better person because I do this thing.
Yeah.
It's something that feels like I look forward to this thing, even when I also sometimes hate it. Because sometimes in a hobby, you're doing something, you get stuck at some point. It's like, oh my gosh. Like sometimes on
Right.
a ride, a long ride, it feels like I'm like, what? I think I broke my sit bones. Um, the biggest one, though, actually, that I think is really important is I think a hobby should make you feel like a kid again.
Mm.
Like I think it should feel playful and exciting um, and I don't know. I guess that's the only way I can describe it. Make you feel a little bit like a kid again, like you're connecting to a younger part of yourself. Because at some point we decide as adults, hobbies are for children. Adults do
Yeah.
serious things like read books that are assigned to them about comfort crisis. Which, by the way, Spaceman, don't forget that's our book club next month.
3 weeks.
You're all assigned. What would you add to my list?
Um,
Nothing. Rob has said it all again.
and done. No, actually, the three things. What were they again? I wasn't
I
listening
wasn't
real
paying
well,
attention
apparently.
either. That was good. Number one was
Um,
it should challenge. It should be developing you. It should challenge you a little bit.
yeah,
Number two was it should be fulfilling, and number three was it should make you feel like a kid again.
yeah. Like to me, the big ones. I would have worded them differently, but that was it, right? Like to me, I think make you feel like a kid again. It should be fun. Like I said, like you should get excited about it, right? Like anytime I think of riding a bike, because I haven't really ridden a bike in it's probably close to 30 years at this point, not like with any kind of consistency. And so my memory of riding a bike is trying to go as fast as I can and loving hills, like going down hills and that feeling. And so it is my memory of bike riding is very kid. Um, and that's fun to me. Like I loved that feeling. Um, but again, like something that helps you grow, whether intellectually, physically. Um, but the big like to me, I think, and I don't know how like level of importance, but I think it's a good thing, especially for people who are very results driven.
Uh huh.
You find a hobby that gives you a sense of accomplishment, right? Like if you're a very results oriented person, then you need to be able to do your hobby and look at it and say like, yeah, I accomplished something.
Right.
If riding your bike around the block 50 times does not going to help you feel like you accomplished anything, then don't pick that up as a hobby
Right.
because it's just going to be frustrating to you the whole time. Um, I, as much as I would love, well, and here's the other thing that's important with a hobby, because as I'm discovering, as I'm like researching hobbies, they're freaking expensive. Like
Yeah.
someone was like, "Well, dude, like you're kind of you're kind of into collecting vinyls. Like, why don't you call that your hobby?" No, because vinyls are freaking expensive. Like
Yeah.
I'm
But
probably in the next couple of weeks going to pick up like 3 vinyls. It's going to cost me like $120
well,
for
I
these
mean,
3 freaking vinyls.
but I think I actually was right before you said that. I was thinking the same thing. Like, try to find hobbies that aren't so expensive. But I think there's
Yeah,
all these memes about cycling. That's like, if I mean my bike, this bike cost me a few $1,000s. Um, and I could have gone much more expensive. I mean, the bikes that they ride in the Tour de France are like $20,000 in some cases.
right, right,
Now, obviously, I wouldn't be buying that bike, but even just buying, I could buy a bike that's $10,000. I had a client who would buy, he had 6 or 7 bikes, and they were all in the $10,000 range,
yeah,
and he could afford that, so it's fine.
right,
But sometimes I think it's a mistake to think, like if you say, well, vinyl is my hobby. It's like, well, how many do you have? And you said 3. And they're like, really? So how big of a hobby is it? It's like, oh, I love it. I read all
right,
about it. I know the vinyls I want to buy. I just don't have the money yet.
right,
So
right,
it's like, yeah, you're just more deliberate or frugal about
right.
your hobby. It's
Well,
like
and that's the
I
thing.
do my hobby cheaply.
And that's my point wasn't don't do expensive hobbies. but it was realized like maybe don't experiment. Like I haven't, like I said, I haven't ridden a bike in probably consistently in like 30 years.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to go out and spend your kind of money on a bike.
Right. Which, by
I'm
the
going to
way,
go out.
I waited to do that.
Oh, I
I
know.
rode
You
on a
were
cheaper
like
bike for
years and
years.
years into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Years and years into it before you spent that kind of money on a bike.
Right.
Um, and that's my point. Like, ideally, I know I want to end up woodworking at some point.
Right.
Like we were driving past Lowe's and saw a bunch of sheds, and Jenner said, "Which shed would you want?" And I was like, "Depends what it's for." And she's like, "A wood shop," and I was like, "Yeah, okay." Right, because but that's ultimately like I want to get to a point where I've got just a small wood shop where I can go do stuff. Yeah, like forget the fact that materials can be expensive. Like a chop saw, like saws and sanding equipment and lathes and all those kinds of things. No, those are expensive. Like if I were to go out even just to get like I've been thinking about like okay, what if I were to like start with like the simplest equipment I could find, what would it for me, and I've done some woodworking in the past, so like I think yeah, I think I could make it work with these. I thought I would need some kind of like handheld sander of some kind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Orbital or a mini belt sander or something like that. And if you're a woodworker and you're listening to this and you're thinking, Mike, you're an idiot, I don't care. And the other is I would want like a telescoping chop saw, right? And I think no, I could probably get pretty far with just those two things right off the bat, right?
Uh-huh.
No, that's still like $400 or $500, right? To get maybe not quite that much, but pretty close. Like if I find a good sale, I could probably get a telescoping chop
Right.
saw for a few hundred. Belt sanders probably $100. But I'm like, yeah, that's still like $300, $400, $500. Okay, well, if I'm looking, and this is what I did was, what is it about woodworking that is appealing to me?
Right.
Well, part of it is it's that creation. I like to create things and I like to do things with my hands. Okay, as a teacher, I used to do origami with my students. It was a great thing at the end of the year. The kids thought it was really cool. And so I thought, okay, I can get, like 500 sheets of origami paper for $10. And I can make a ton of crap with 500 sheets of origami paper.
Right.
And so in the meantime, until I'm willing to drop the $300-400 to get going on woodworking, then maybe I find a hobby that costs less, but that satisfies in a similar way. It won't be exact because I'm not building wood, right? But it satisfies some of the things that I would get from woodworking. So think of stuff like that to me when you're looking at hobbies. If this one is too expensive, if I can't jump into the $3,000 bike, okay, what is it? What am I looking for from this hobby? Why do I
Well,
think bike riding is going to give me that?
and it's funny because I could say too that with hobbies like that, it's like I intentionally went cheap because I didn't know if I would do it.
Yeah,
And even going cheap, I remember the first time that I got a, a kit, like the bib, the riding
yeah.
jersey, and the spandex that had the chamois butt, the padded butt that my son said looks like a back wiener. Um, when I got that, the first time I was riding it, it was like 5:30 in the morning, and I was coming down some hill where the way it happens often here in Austin anyway, that the fog will kind of settle into the low areas. So there's no fog, but there'll just be this chunk of foggy, and the sun was coming up, and I remember riding and kind of bouncing back and forth on my super cheap kit that I bought off Amazon with things that are, it's words that are just letters. It's not even a word. Um, and I remember bouncing and thinking, and I even said out loud, "This is so fun!" Like I didn't have the expensive gear, but it was so fun to just be
Right,
going doing this thing.
right.
Um, And actually, it's kind of like, once they got the more expensive gear, it was like, oh, I can ride faster. But in the end, it's like,
Yeah.
it's not more fun necessarily. It is a better bike, no
Yeah.
question. So I think you're right. I think it's the purpose behind it. You don't have to do it expensively. Sometimes, and this is what reconnects us back to humans, it's like, I want to get into woodworking and I know a guy who does it.
Yeah.
So I don't have to go buy all my own stuff. I go do it with my buddy and he shows me how to do it and I get to use his equipment.
Right.
Like this button hooked band reunion that we'll put out CDs for that everyone can buy. Oh, I should do a GoFundMe. I should do a donate to Rob's band camp, and then I get to go on this trip, a la the Manspace. But
Hey, fun fact, by the way,
yeah,
we could put button hooked on vinyl.
oh
There are places that you can create your own vinyl.
well, Ryan and Dan, our trumpet player, have all the equipment to like record stuff. But I mean, all you need is a laptop now, unless you're Dave Grohl. But I think when I do this, I'm just gonna go borrow somebody else's guitar, like,
Yeah.
and they'll be like, "Hey, this is a really good guitar," and they'll be like, "How dare you shame my guitar with that crappy music you played?" Rob would be like, "Sorry, here, you can have it back." But still, it's like, it's just my hobby. I don't care. It's fun. It makes me feel like a kid again.
Yeah.
So I do think it matters to pursue this because I think we overlook how important hobbies are in terms of making us feel like ourselves, and I think men in particular struggle with that. I shouldn't say in
Hmm.
particular. Women do in very different ways, but they also, I think, especially when women become moms, with parenting, it just kind of says, well, goodbye to yourself. It's all gone
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
So get a hobby, you bunch of losers. And then catch us next time because we're ending.
Wait,
Nope. Okay,
before
fine.
we end, if
I
you
know
have
it.
suggestions for Mike's new hobby, go ahead and put them in
Oh.
the comment section because Mike needs a new hobby.
Oh.
The end.
Just do the woodworking thing. Solved it. All right. Don't send any. Just kidding. Put comments in and we'll make an experiment. Send a comment
Oh,
of a hobby Mike should pick up. And
and
we will
we'll
make a
see
thing
which ones we can try.
that
Mike
Mike
trying
has to do.
hobbies.
He has to do all of them. He has to try every single one of them and report back to us.
No,
Yes,
because
we're doing that. Cliff diving. Mike's on board.
Mike's gonna go hobby shopping.
Mike's bungee jumping next week.
The cliff might be 10 feet
How are we ever supposed to
onto a trampoline.
increase our listenership if you don't listen to what the people want, Mike? So come back and catch us next time on the Manspace. Mike's got a hobby.